Hoy yo estoy de fiesta. Wow, oh, oh, oh. Esta noche yo ya no te vuelvo a buscar. No sé lo que vi en tu corazón, pero te aseguro que eso fue un error. No te quiero en mi vida más. Te lo juro, no voy a.
Thank you everybody for joining in. We are here today with local author Daisy Lopez. Daisy, if you'd like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Okay, like she mentioned, my name is Daisy Lopez. I am a local native Rio Grande Valley member here, and I attended, school here. I went to J.A.R here. I started writing maybe about 5 years ago, but it's been a while. It's been a process to be able to get these stories out to the public, especially because of where they come from and the strong background, with the Mexican folktales that are around the valley already.
And elaborate more on that. I wanted to know, were you rejected by? Did you go to certain publishers and they were like, no, you're not interested, or is it just getting your foot in the door to speak to someone? Like, what are the biases you witnessed from that?
I think that one of the things that I did notice when I started just putting the ideas out there was a little bit more of, it's so well known here in the valley, but once you leave the valley, even to Corpus, it becomes very difficult for people to relate to those type of stories. So my fear was, what if we just, target here? What I wanted to do is get these stories out, to other cultures, to other areas, rather than just the valley. The valley has so many great writers, so many great poets, and even some of our districts here don't have that work in their curriculum. So it's sad, it's not there. We'll see, Charlotte's Web in 4th grade, integrated, everybody remembers reading that, but nobody remembers reading books, for example, like Rudolph Fornina with Bless Me Ultima. You don't get to read that until the freshman year.
I don't think I've ever read that. I think that was a little too hard for me.
So the first time I was ever introduced to Chicano literature was actually in high school. So throughout elementary, middle school, I never knew that there were even any Chicano students. So I didn't make a connection with any author until my high school years. So I kind of, wanted to get this integrated, but like I said, not just here in the valley, like also out into schools especially.
That was pretty good. No, I think the furthest in my high school that I read was The Outsiders?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good movie too.
Yeah.
But other than that, I wouldn't read anything else.
And this is like an anthology of different short stories?
Right. So what happened was, I'm a teacher. I am a 4th grade writing teacher. And we had this huge struggle, and it's happening all over, the state of Texas, where children they're not reading at their reading level. Everybody's falling behind, and then it's showing a lot in the state exams. And Texas has a huge problem with this. So if the reading is suffering, the writing is also suffering.
Well, they're still following that law that. Who was it? Clinton? Miss Clinton or Bush?
No child left
behind. They're still following that rule, aren't
right,
they?
They are.
Whether you read at that level or not, they're still going to pass you.
Right.
So.
And there was an article released maybe about 8 years ago, the New York Times, and the article talked about how in Texas, they take the grades of the 3rd graders for the state exams. And whatever percentage of students that do not pass, they use that to predict how many jail beds they need to make in the next 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So they're already making this prediction about, what kids are, where they're going to be at based on them not being at a reading level. So when I became an educator, I love my kids. And I saw them suffering, and, where I teach is a very impoverished area, high, socioeconomic rates that decline like crazy. So I had to find material that they were attracted to read. And for some reason, English language learning children love ghost stories.
Oh,
okay. So then that's when I was like, okay, this is my book. Yeah. So I wrote the book, already bringing in the stories that I had grown up with, because growing up, I was an English language student. My first language was Spanish. So what I did was I created the book, I did the stories, and aside from that, I did a workbook. So at the same time that they're reading the book, they're working on the workbook, and it entails all the tics that are required for them to take the state exam.
That's actually really amazing. That's a lot of credit towards you because I know a lot of the issues like in school and learning, comes from like people, teachers, are just not, appreciated enough. Like people just do the job, but it's difficult and we're hating us, and not a lot of people are focused on what can they do better. It's just like there's a lot of struggle.
And that too. When I was in college, before I got into theaters, a degree in that, I was a mathematics degree, and I wanted to be a teacher for mathematics to help out the students, because after I think 4th, 5th grade, like a lot of students start losing interest in mathematics, and once they get to junior high or high school, they don't know what they're doing anymore with fractions. So that's where I wanted to educate them, but I don't know if I need civil. So
It's mind-boggling how much of, even you see it like with younger adults today, people I've worked with that don't know how to spell basic words.
Right.
And I'm like, reading they're so disinterested, and it doesn't help with this like trend of like abbreviating everything, and
Right.
everything's just an emoji, and nothing's.
I just feel like times are completely different now than they were then. Like in school though too.
With technology,
When my younger sister, they were just automatically for school given like iPads and stuff, and I'm like, what? Like that kind of like takes away from like the basic learning and things to do at school.
And I know, like, my sister, she was like, do you have it on Kindle? Like, she's like, I want to buy it here. And I said, no, you have to order the book. Like, I want to like, touch it.
You have to go through that process.
Nobody wants like actual.
I can. And it's just like, you're so old school. And I was like, call me that. I'm like, I would rather just have the book and be able to touch it.
But even if you do want to do it on technology, they're not promoting those sites enough. We'll read a book online then. And
Well, so as far as that, then your book, so Voices from the Past.
Right.
Where can anyone get this book if they're interested in buying?
It's available on Amazon, and it's also available at Barnes & Noble here in McAllen. So you can stop it.
How did you get through?
Is it just local or is
It's local, but if you go online, you can buy it in anywhere. But locally, it's just here in McAllen.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, that's pretty good. I see that you have like one and
Yes.
Love True Stuff on here.
Yes.
That's actually something that I grew up with too,
Really?
as far as like them telling me stories about.
I didn't know it was an owl for a long time.
Yeah.
I pictured like an old decrepit woman, like that was her name, that was an owl.
That always stayed stuck in my head, so every time I'd see an owl, I'm like, it's following me!
It's scary when you call it that.
Yeah. Wow.
Out of all the stories, is there like a specific one that was the most challenging, or one that you did and you had to sort of do your more homework on that was?
It would have to be my first story in the book. It's Toluca Ranch, and the reason it was so difficult was because it's a family. It's a generational story. It's real. I have to be very careful with who I interviewed. I have to be very careful with what research I did, time frame, who I spoke to, because I had to protect or respect the family.
Okay.
So when I presented the story, I provided a copy to the family that owns the ranch or the area, and they were very pleased because it was very anonymous. So they wouldn't be able to trace back to me.
You did change names,
Right?
Just first names.
That's correct. I will say this: in the process of writing the book, I was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. And writing, I attest to it, kind of saved my life. It kept me occupied from going through all like the harsh chemos and stuff like that. And it's productive, and it becomes something that gives you more purpose, and it keeps you going.
I can barely work through a cold.
How long did it take to put into this?
The first story, Toluca Ranch, it took me about a year. But like I said, it's only because I had to be extremely careful with the information that I was gathering. And then the rest of them, they all came personally from my grandfather. So those were things that I could actually put out there. But Toluca Ranch was, like I said, the one that took me a little bit longer. We did used to live next to this ranch, so we knew the family, and that's what helped.
Oh, okay. That's a idea.
And you said all these stories that are here from the valley? Or-
They're tracing, they run from the Rio Grande Valley all the way to Louisiana. And the
Oh.
reason I did that was because, believe it or not, a lot of our Mexican culture, and even folktales, have a close tie to African folktales as
That's
well.
interesting.
So you see a lot of, commonalities.
Wow, people think it's so different. It's
Right,
like,
and it's not,
common
it's not at all. And when I found that, I was like, oh my gosh, like we do that too. And, stuff like that with the egg and how like if you have a headache,
Oh,
wrap the
really?
egg and
That
put it in
That seems
stuff
voodoo-ish.
like
It's
that.
gotta be,
Yeah, and then like the red ribbon, if you have a newborn and he can't stop like having hiccups, you put a ribbon on their forehead and it works. And that's also in the African culture.
Wow.
So like a lot of similarities that we have.
What about the Vicks?
That cures everything.
Yeah, I think it's just
I saw a meme that it cured the coronavirus too.
But did you guys hear about that? How it's in the Lysol can?
Yeah,
Yes.
I talked about
What?
it earlier.
Yes, we were talking about it earlier. I mean, is there anything else that you're writing besides this book?
I am working on something, I know something that I really wanted to do this year. Hopefully have it published by December is a children's book.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
called Macaria the Mexican Puppet. And if you've ever been to Mexico, you know what they call títeres. They're
No.
wooden
The little
dolls,
puppet
yes,
dolls?
with the
Oh, I used
strings.
to love getting
Well, like
those.
marionettes, I guess.
Right,
but-
so there's a huge history behind them, and it traces back to like the Mayan
Oh, wow.
life. So
That's
it has a lot of history, and all my stories have mixed modalities, which means it's a mixture of genres. You have fiction and nonfiction. So I'll give you a little bit of history on the area or the subject, and then I'll introduce the story.
And are you talking like full novel or also another anthology book?
Probably another anthology.
Oh, wow.
What inspired you to write this?
But this one, well, I work with a lot of children, and like I said, my focus is always to have them read something that they can have that connection with. A lot of literature that's presented now for the kids, they'll read it and they're like, oh,
And it's like
why I've
words
never-
are-
Right, and even like we were mentioning about Charlotte's Web, I had a group of kids come to me after they finished reading it in a reading class, and they said, Ms. Lopez, I don't get it. And I said, well, why don't you get by Charlotte's Web and make it easy? And he said, why is this girl taking so much care of this pig? He's just a pig, miss. He's like, you know what we do to pigs? He's like, we kill him and we make carne asada. He's like, that's what they're for. So they couldn't make that connection to Charlotte's Web, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to find material for them.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to do that.
Because they're like, my family would never.
Yeah, I was like, no, the pig in the house,
Like a
no.
lady in bed, yeah.
That breaks my heart.
Yes, you can look me up, America's Favorite Chicana Storyteller on Facebook, as well as Google, and you'll have the website. It's a Wix website there. There's some copies that I do donate to the Westica Museum, and what they do is that they sell the books, and any money that they make off it goes back to the museum itself. So you can find them there at the museum. Like I said, online, they have them in Barnes and Noble as well. So it's pretty much there.
That's pretty good. And your kids, what story do they like?
They like the ghost on Route 77. That's their favorite. And it's because they're like, Mom, we travel through there all the time. So I'm like, I make sure, like I tell them the story, make sure you have your seatbelts on or this is going to happen. But that's like their favorite story. And that story, I remember my grandfather telling us that story. And, I want my kids to know it because it was fun for us. We used to be migrant farm working families, so we would travel a lot. So all the way over there, it was storytelling. And then after work and working in the fields, when only 6 years old, you looked forward to that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have that anymore. We don't go outside and listen to our grandparents tell us ghost stories and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a tradition that we're losing slowly, but I use that for my kids as well.
Well, I think in general, nobody goes outside anymore because
Well,
from back then till now, I think it's a little bit more hotter.
Right.
Like if you just stepped outside and the sun's actually
Or there's more
burning your
social
skin.
media.
Yeah.
More
Like these gatherings,
technology.
Yeah.
old family
Right.
gatherings
Yeah.
are dying out a little.
Right.
But you're living through this, which is
Yes,
interesting.
yes.
I did want to ask though, as a local author, artist in the RGV, is there any clubs, books, book groups, anything that you've met up at for other people to know about?
I
Books,
have-
poetry?
I do present a lot at schools. So what I do is, my focus is to get young teenage women authors to start publishing at an early age.
Okay.
So I do meet with them. I do have somebody that was interested in publishing this May. So she's only 16 years old, SPR. So she should be coming out with her first book, and it's a poetry book.
So if there's anyone else that's listening in
Right.
today that would like to get involved in this,
Right.
is there any recommendations on how they can?
Basically, the only thing I tell them is be prepared to receive criticism. I think that as an author, that's one of the most difficult things that you can do, you know, is to have somebody critique your work, whether it be positive or negative. But what I tell them most of the time is, you know, remember that no matter what people tell you, it's your work. At the end of the day, you don't have to defend it. And I said every author, you know, has a style. Every author writes what they choose to write, but you know, you don't have to defend it.
Especially when it's so personal.
Right.
You just like I don't want to change a word. I don't want to have it here. Say that.
And many authors, I mean, that's one of the biggest fears I feel as an author is, oh my God, what are they going to say?
Yeah, it's harder when you love your work so much that you want someone to love it too, and then they're doing
Right.
it.
And it's so easy to get discouraged, but I tell, you know, my young authors, like, no matter what, you can't stop. You gotta keep going.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell us or the audience that's listening in? Any advice, anything about yourself that you would like to throw out there? Books? If anyone wanted to reach you to ask questions about writing,
Facebook or can they get hold of
Facebook,
you?
yeah, they can Facebook or just my work email for I call it America's Favorite Chicana Storytelling Company. It's dlopez80@rocketmail.com. So that's the quickest way to get to me is an email. I've seen that before
Just
text.
a picture.
I did.
Oh, that's your
Yes.
that's your artwork on the front too.
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's supposed you did like pretty much did everything.
Yes.
That's cool. You're like I work alone.
Well, there you have it, folks. Lopez. Daisy Lopez. Change your name completely.
thank you everybody for joining in today. Daisy Lopez, thank you for
Thank
coming
you for
in
having me. I
today.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Hoy yo estoy de fiesta. Wow.